So now we're ready to talk about the language of leadership. This is going to cover many areas. A lot of this part of the course is going to be reading, supplemental reading, various exercises, but you will still be gaining the new value and understanding about the language of leadership. Now, you're going to hear me reference the word linguistic, monolingual, multilingual language quite a bit for obvious reasons. This course is about women in leadership using emotional intelligence to drive effective communications. In our last part of the course, Module 4, that's where I will sort of not dig too deep into emotional intelligence because that's a wide spectrum, but it will be deep enough for you to walk away with a great understanding about this course and you as a woman in leadership and how you're going to use the limited knowledge you may have as it relates to emotional intelligence. I'm hoping this course will provide you enough emotional intelligence to utilize it within your businesses or your workplace. You will hear me describe at the end of the course that I actively engage myself on site, providing the full range of the course, not only to executives, top-level management, but even to the workforce on the premises. So more on that at the end of the course in my final video. For this particular video, we're going to talk about speaking at meetings and getting heard. Why do you need to speak at meetings? Now, maybe you're thinking, I'm not a speaker like you, Ronay. I'm not a professional speaker. I've never been on stage to speak. And I know straight away, many of you are thinking, if I've never been on stage to speak, it's for one reason: fear. Yeah, I know. Fear is the most recognized fear of all of them around the world. You would not believe the dynamic and the physical altercation people have within themselves regarding standing up to speak to a live public audience. Have I ever had that fear? Honestly, no. See, my father was a pastor, a preacher, and my mother was an educator. Now, my father I'm speaking of in past tense because he is deceased. My mother, however, is very much alive, and she's a retired educator, teacher, who is accustomed to standing before, regardless to little kids, but accustomed to the art of oratory communications, using the words to communicate, to teach, to train, to empower, to connect. In this part of the course, I would like to help you understand what the language of leadership is. So let me begin by saying this to you. It's about the connection. The language of leadership is first knowing how to communicate, so much so that you connect to the people. It's not so good to just connect with people and not connect to the heart of people. Once you have the heart of people, you really have a gold mine, because people who are connected to you and what you do, what you say, embodying your entire vision, there's nothing they won't do for you, irregardless to what it is, obviously within reason. But I think you understand my point. You see, most leaders don't really get it correct, in my professional, humble, yet bold opinion. It's not so much about the input that you put into a thing. It's more about the outcome. You can put all you have into a project, but unless the end results, the outcome, provides the results that you were aiming for, the input was null and pointless. The input, many people think, is the most important step to driving productivity. No, it is not. It is all about the input to the extent that you have to do the input to get to an outcome without being involved in putting things forward. Nothing is going to come out at the end. Look at it this way. If you don't make a deposit into your account, at the end of the day, you can't go and withdraw from what you don't have already on hold in that account. Productivity is the same way. The language of leadership is the same way. You have to first know what it is that you want to convey to people, because once you are solid on that understanding, your connection with people is going to be easy. As a speaker myself, and have been for over 35 years, this is how I made my living in more than 40 countries. And when I say I've lived in more than 40 countries, I'm not talking about 2 weeks. That's not living anywhere. That's just a vacation. But a year, 2, 3 years. And one of the things that I learned about communications, about language, living in countries all over the world where most everybody with a heartbeat and a pulse was multilingual, and they were not dismissed because of it, I can tell you that the one thing I've learned is when you don't embrace the culture, embrace the language, embrace the societal beliefs, irregardless to how strange it may appear to you, you're never going to connect with people, and you most emphatically put will be dismissed. You can't just go in demanding something in someone else's country where you are only there temporarily, whether that's temporarily to work or temporarily by vacation. Either way, your demands means nothing to the locals. It's more important to connect with people. How do you do that? Communication. You may not be able to speak French. I realize it's a difficult language to learn. So is Arabic. But when you learn just a few conversational words, Japon, madame. Japon, I am learning française. Puis-je avoir parler avec vous in anglais? Please, may I speak to you in English? You would be amazed at the long road and red carpet that locals in different countries, wherever you are at that time, will extend to you when you begin a meeting, if you will, or a connection. You're in to buy a bagel or something, or to get a cup of coffee to take away. You would be amazed at the red carpet people will give to you just because you simply tried to communicate in their language. Do you understand that you are showing not only respect to that person, for that person, but for their language? Every country I've ever lived in, the proudest thing that the locals have about who they are is their language and how they communicate that language. If you are learning a foreign language and you are not speaking it and resonating and articulating it in the same, shall we say, flow and accent as the local, some might get offended and say that you are destroying the language. Can you communicate? Yes. Even though you may not have the right enunciation, people will figure out and know what you're saying. But then some will still dismiss you and reject you because you may be perceived as just putting on airs. So the language of leadership is all about, number one, connection. Number two, authenticness. If you're not going to be authentic with people, don't think you're going to get away with it. People will know and the truth crushed to the ground shall rise. And that means that anything you're trying to hide, that you're trying to suffocate, it's going to rise up. Sooner or later, the pretentiousness that sometimes we as women do because through our communication, because we feel we have to reposition ourselves sometimes in a manner as a male would just to get respect. Well, remember the module before this, the video before this talked about being yourself, respecting yourself, loving yourself, understanding who you are and why, and loving it. Hello? So please bear in mind that while connection is the first thing as it relates to the language of leadership, authentication is also equally important. So be authentic. Let people see through whether earlier I talked about verbal communication and nonverbal. So it shouldn't matter whether you're using verbal or nonverbal. People need to see that you're being authentic, and they will be able to tell. Same if you don't utter one word. And then the third most important element, if you will, to the language of leadership is empowerment. Oh, la, 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 la. That's a word we hear all the time everywhere, isn't it? It seems like everybody with a heartbeat and a pulse is using the word empowerment. Well, let me just tell you how I feel about that word. To empower is to uplift. To empower is to uphold. To empower is to embrace. Who do you know among you or at a distance from you didn't feel lifted when you embraced them? They didn't have to be in a bad mood or a sad one, but just by virtue of the fact that you embraced them, and then followed by some words of encouragement. That's empowerment. That's empowering a person to feel like they can go and take on the world, honey. So be mindful of these things. The language of leadership is being mindful. It's mindfulness. That's also a key element and characteristic in emotional intelligence. You see where I'm going here? As I'm sort of having the Italian crescendo, moving up and taking you on a journey as it relates to you and me as women in leadership, and how we use emotional intelligence to, remember the hammer, drive effective communication. So let's take a look at some other parts of language in leadership, authority. That's very important. But let me back up a second, because I want you to know that one of the ways to achieve those things that I've already mentioned is speaking at meetings and before the public. And as I said, you may be dreading doing such a thing because of your fear of public speaking. Never mind, you got to get over it. And I do have a course on that, so check it out. But never mind about your fear. If you are a woman in leadership, you've got to almost be like Wonder Woman. Put on your cape and fly to the wind and conquer every demon there is in front of you. I mean, literally, as women, this is what we are not only expected to do, but we actually are given room and allowed to do in some instances. Speaking at meetings and being heard is a very powerful way of, number one, creating authority. As women in leadership, you can have the title, but it doesn't mean you have the people. You see what I mean? A boss has the title, but a leader has the people. Oh, that's good. Did you hear it? A boss has a title, but a leader has the people. That's why I said a moment ago that the first responsibility, the first characteristic of the language of leadership is connection. If you can't connect with people, sugar baby, you got nothing. Absolutely nothing. Hello, zero. So, speaking at meetings is for one purpose, to be heard. For the other purpose, it is to create a position of authority. When we are heard as women in public forums, that's an opportunity to display your personal and professional persona. Have you discovered what your personal or professional or combined persona actually is? If you've not figured that out, work on it. If you're feeling rejected, dismissed, not qualified, I can guarantee you it has everything to do with your personal persona. So, why do we need to position ourselves as authority? Because for the reason I just stated, you can be a boss, but that's all you got is the title. But when you are a leader, you understand authority and you take your place as one in authority. And that is what makes the difference, because a leader has the people. And when you've got the people, you've got the authority. So number 2 is visibility. Visibility. When you're speaking at a meeting, presenting yourself, you're not only showing your authority, your knowledge, your expertise, articulating yourself as a thought leader, but you are giving yourself visibility. This is an opportunity to display not only to colleagues, but even other executives and upper level management on your capabilities that they may be unaware of. Don't assume that because you work in a certain work environment and you've already been hired as an executive level leader of whatever company or genre that may be, don't assume that they know everything there is to know about you. You could have been in the right place at the right time and therefore you got the job. Qualified or maybe not. The point that I'm making is that upper level management, board of directors, board of advisors in the corporation, in the company, where you may embody your work expertise. They may not know of your capabilities, long range. They only may know the short term, the short range of who you are and what you are capable of. That's the reason this platform becomes essential. Remember during coronavirus, when the whole world was shut down, the only companies that were allowed to stay open and operate were those that were essential businesses. For example, pharmacies, of course, hospitals, transportation, taxis, the Lyfts, the Careems, the Ubers, businesses, grocery stores. These are essential businesses, and they've been open the whole time. Everybody else had to be shut down, stay home, to protect themselves, ourselves, from a deadly virus. So visibility, again, going back to that, provides you an opportunity to be seen, to be known as an essential to that company. Ooh. Once those in power know that you are an essential, in other words, you are an asset, well, you're not going anywhere perhaps when the major layoffs began, because you're viewed as an essential, as an asset versus a liability. When you become a liability, you got to go, because now you're utilizing profits and nothing is being gained by keeping you there. This is a worry for many women in leadership. Doesn't have to be. Again, you just have to know yourself and redefine yourself, who you are or who you want to be. Finally, it enables you to perfect your message, to perfect your outcome. Whatever it is you're doing that you want to lead to a form of profitability or productivity, your audience of support, your tribe of support may be small or varied, but namely small and limited. So speaking at meetings to be heard can expand your territory. It can expand your platform. It can expand your needs to hone in faster and to develop more concretely that vision for that desired outcome. That's it for this part of the course. Keep right on riding on this train. I've got a lot more for you. Thank you for watching the video.